Air Force Base in South Carolina, near Sumter, uh, for the RF version of the 10, you know. So I did a lot of traveling. I mean, my wife didn't like that at all. I mean, you know, it was not the greatest. So I decided to. Then they came along. I heard about a Department 95 that I never heard of before.
That was a new department.
Huh?
A new department.
Yeah, it was a brand new department, and I thought, well, why don't I try to get in on a beginning of a department? So I talked to Ed Ryan, who was they brought him over from some other area, and he was the manager of this department. He said, yeah, we can use you. You can write procedures here and all that kind of stuff. And I went into work with Art Dockraden and let's see, who else? Several more, and we did a procedure for the division. You know, all kinds of things that the director of the division wanted covered. We did the procedure on it, and then we'd you know, circulate it among all the managers, and they'd okay it or not okay it. Cross out here, you know, one of those kind of deals. And then finally I got back into the working on automated systems, which was, you know, which was the main thing for the department. But I hadn't had any experience in that at all. So finally they gave me some kind of a stupid program that had 3 million cards in it. Would you believe 3 million? IBM, the old IBM cards, you know, and a little bigger than an index card, and we'd process those through the computer at that time, and it was a you know, if you dropped the box of them, you had to resort them, and I don't know, it was a mess.
Did it happen to you?
Yeah, that they sure did. Because, you know, we dealt with a lot of them, and we tried to get them done, and unfortunately, we have a little accident now and then. And then, of course, we later on developed tape, and then disc, and all kinds of stuff, and a progression through the thing. So, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know how, I kind of liked it. So we finally got to going on a system. I had one called Access. I did a lot of work on that. It was an old system when I got a hold of it, and it had so many patches in it that when when I made a change, I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen because we'd have to do a little test run to make sure it was still working right, and because it affected several divisions in the company. It affected manufacturing mostly, but it also had offshoots to product support. It also had with the assurance division and all kinds of stuff. So we did. I did that a lot, and I worked with Al Banks on that. He was in manufacturing systems, and I did a lot of that. And then later on, before I retired, I went into trying to develop some systems for 93. That was a big mess because 93 tried to keep track of spare parts. We finally tried to build a system so that we wouldn't have $600 toilet seats and stuff like that. You know, I mean, it was trying to keep down the cost. And we finally, well, then after that was pretty well done, they came along and said, Bill, we'd like for you to, they got a new system coming up. We'd like for you to work on that. I said, what is it? And they told me, and they said, well, he's going to give you about $12 million and 4 years. I said, oh, no, you don't. So that was just before Labor Day. of 85, I, I went home and talked to my wife and said, you know, I don't want to work 4 more years because, you know, I was 62 and I thought, man, you know, I'll be 66 and, you know, it really wouldn't be the greatest. So I decided to retire. So I came back after Labor Day and told them I was going to retire at the end of the year, you know.
So what was that big project? 4-year project?
Yeah, I don't know whatever happened to it or anything, or who worked on it, but I decided I didn't want any part of it. Not that it wouldn't have been a good Now, if I were 20, 30 years younger, it would have been great. But I was getting into the position where I just didn't have the old enthusiasm I used to have, you know. So I decided to call it quits, and I did. And then in January 31st of 1986 was my last day that I retired. And had several parties, and it was really enjoyable. But and I don't regret any of the McDonald's stuff. I had an awful lot of fun there. I guess I would have I would have quit if I wasn't happy. Never did make a great deal of money there, but as I say, the benefits were good, and they also, at the end there, the last few years, they would allow you to put a lot of money in a savings plan, which helped me financially to retire. So I decided that I could make it on what I could, little pension. That was before I got any Social Security. I now get Social Security, but at that time, all I got was a pension from McDonnell Douglas, and it never goes up.
Oh.
Whatever you retire at, you know, retire at $1,000 or $1,500, $2,000 a month. That's what it is. I mean, inflation or no inflation, you don't get any more after 5, 10 years than you did in the beginning. So you got to take that into consideration when you retire. So I did a lot of soul searching and found out I could retire. So, and I haven't regretted it.
How did you manage to work happily for 35 years?
How did I work happily?
Yeah, a lot of people could not stand it.
I know. At one time, after I was there a while, I guess I was there 3 or 4 years, in the middle and late 50s, I decided, Bill, you know, I might as well get another job. This checking out these airplanes on those wire balls and so forth wasn't the greatest. So I thought, well, I got to do something to use my education. Because most of the guys I was working with didn't have a college degree. So I decided I'm going to go into the FBI.
Wow.
Well, I never did make it. I went and took a test, a physical test. You see, they give you the physical first. When they got to the eyes, I lost. Because my depth perception wasn't good enough. In other words, I couldn't see one of the bad guys, whether he was across the street or right on the front porch. You know, I went out in St. Charles, and they had a long room. It had cables and so forth, and little pins back in the back, and you had to line those pins up. I flunked. I didn't get it at all. I had a real problem with that, and I never did get a chance to take the mental test, the paperwork test, but I couldn't get past the physical test. So I was okay as far as heart and lungs were concerned, but eyesight was not that I couldn't see. It's just that my depth perception wasn't much. So
you're not fit for the street action.
Yeah, I wasn't one of those street people that could go out and hunt down somebody.
Yeah.
if I could have stayed in the office, I'd have been all right, you know. But but you know, emergencies come up, and you know, so I lost out on that. So then I came back to work, and I decided, well, this is not so bad after all. So I stayed there for a long time.
Did, did
I
you,
had good times and bad, but more good than bad.
did you ever feel sorry, feel bad about putting your college education aside and do all the operational stuff?
In the beginning, I did.
Oh, you did.
I thought, well, I'm wasting all this education because, well, you know, you go to school and you get a degree, a BJ from EMU, and you think, well, maybe I'm going to use that.
Especially as you come out of that big school of journalism.
Yeah, it was a good school, and
That's a top school.
yeah, it's one of the top schools in the country, and has been for many years, and it was a privilege to go there. The only thing was, after I got out, I decided, well, I just don't. I don't know. I decided I should do something else. So I was never seriously handicapped by that. I mean, it didn't affect me mentally. I'm sure it could some people, but I'm a fairly strong individual, spiritual wise and resolve wise and stuff like that. I didn't have any problem deciding what I wanted to do. And some of the things I did were partly using the education, but I decided to progress. Go ahead, and I did that, and I stayed pretty happy.
Have you ever run into some struggle with the co-workers or the politics in terms of promotion or that kind of stuff?
I tried to ignore that
Assignment?
as much as possible. It's not totally possible, I guess. Some of the things that I did when I was in the shop was I tried to stay clear with as much as possible, and I did the well. I tried to watch what I was doing. I tried not to curry favor with anybody, which can get you in a lot of trouble. I didn't try to play what they call office politics. I guess maybe in some cases it helps, in some cases it doesn't. So, well, what the heck? I'll just play it straight. And I went ahead and did that. Sometimes I didn't really have too much problem. I found out at McDonnell Douglas, if you played it pretty straight and you didn't try to jump over somebody's head and you had a little patience, it paid off, because most people respect that. They may not come out and tell you they do, but they really do. So in going from one department to another, I didn't have any problem. Some departments refuse to let you go. You know how that goes. They get you in a job, and you stay in this job, and they don't want to bring somebody else in and train them because you already know it. Yeah. So it costs them money to train somebody new. So that's why a lot of departments that won't let people go, but I never seemed to have that problem. Of course, I didn't push it too hard. I mean, I just put in my paperwork and answered the questions as they asked them and that kind of stuff. I really didn't have too many conflicts. I seemed to get along with most people. I didn't really have any knockdown, drag out fights. I saw several of them when I was a kid.